right, hey there, Sam here with you on Monday, September 10th, kind of middle of the day. Today's a day that we'd look for an update on, that I would do an update on Bitcoin. There's not a lot to add. Hopefully any of you that had the time over the weekend or perhaps on Friday were able to watch my partner's video. Quan did a video on Friday that was somewhat abbreviated, and boy, did we get a lot of feedback on that. Of course, members got a very detailed video review and analysis from him, but on YouTube, we just put up the abbreviated version. We were kind of curious to see what the feedback looked like there. So, I don't know that we're going to make a big change there, but I would tell you, of course, if you want the detailed analysis, there's a very easy way to get that, right? Join us over on our members Discord. All right, so I'm assuming that's fairly obvious. But okay, with that said, here let's just at least get some look at where we are. So when in doubt, what I'll often do is just strip the chart bare and just get back to a daily and say, okay, what do I know? So certainly you could make the case, and people, you'll see this and all over crypto Twitter, that we have this baseline. Let's get this dialed in here. I don't know that I want that color. We've got this baseline here sort of established. Let's get a little fill on that. Oh, sorry guys, here. Let's get just a little bit of fill so we can make that point there. Okay, so we've got this baseline here. We've been here before, been rejected. That's one. I'd call that a rejection. So, does that mean we were likely to bounce again? Well, I wouldn't go that far. Although it's hard to ignore that this has been tested repeatedly and it's held. So this $6,000 level seems to be reasonable support. Now it's pretty hard to miss this down here, right? So we've got this low volume node down here where I've just wicked this off here, and you can see, we'll call it 5,000 for a round number, this prior pivot, and that's really where we are now. It's just, where could we find support? Well, again, as we've tested this repeatedly. Now, if that breaks, right, it's probably a pretty quick stop to $5,000, and then, down here we've got our 3,200 still sitting there. So I don't know that we need to assume that this is likely to break, but what is sort of the dominant theme here that we can't ignore, right? So regardless of how bullish you are long term, this is just a series of lower highs, right? So we can't ignore that, and it's just a series of unfulfilled algo targets. So if I get that right on there, right? So we've all drawn these many times. Everybody in this, I'm going to pull this off just since we've established that. So we've got, that's this target down here. So we line up there, and I've shown these. My partner's shown these. We've seen these repeatedly, right? So golden zone, and we do it again from here. It's hard to do this on the daily. We get here and we get golden zone. Now this last one here, if we're pulling from the dominant pivot, we don't quite get golden zone. But if I dial it in there best I can, and we'll tighten it up here. We get Vegas wave. We don't quite get to the 618, although there's some question about which pivot they might be using. Algos could be using there. But if we open this up here and think about, well, where could we be going here? So let me let's tighten this up here. So we've got a lot of unrealized targets down here, right? And a fairly good cluster down here around 5,200. So if we are going to break this lower level of support, that's the logical spot that you would anticipate, right? We know algos are just, right? They don't sweat it. They don't worry about it. There's no one there fretting, is the time, are we there yet? They just stay short until they get their targets, right? So we've got this little cluster here around 5,200. But then we've got the deeper cluster down below that we can't ignore here. That the dominant, right? This 50. Well, let's see. Can you see that? This 50 here. That's from our B high that was tested twice. That's the dominant pivot, and that is all down here teed up at 3,200, which it's been there for a long time. It's been referenced many times. Kind of the assumption was, we're not going that low, are we? Well, it wouldn't be the first time, right? So something that took that long. So when did we tap that? Oh, what was that? February of this year. Wouldn't shock me that we got there, but these, certainly are going to we're likely to see a reaction there. As to whether it's enough to hold it, well, I'd want to see something more than just an algo target by itself before I got particularly bullish on that, but can't ignore these. And this consistent pattern of just lower highs. It hasn't always led to lower lows here, so we don't get a lower low here before we get the reaction. We as of yet do not have a lower low here, so it's not a perfectly consistent theme. So here we did not get a lower low. It's not a perfectly consistent theme of lower highs followed by lower lows. So that maybe that's just a whiff of bull smoke there that we can puff on. But as to whether or not I'm ready to get long, no. Now I still hold a lot of Bitcoin, so I haven't sold any Bitcoin. But for a trader, when's the next opportunity to be a buyer? Well, I certainly would want to see one of these highs taken out. Right? It's just again, would you be leaving a lot on the table, right? Of course you would, right? So if we're going to even this high here up at 7,400, if we're going to wait for that to break, yeah, you're not going to get the turn, you're not going to get that first push, but you're fighting the trend here now. So, right, the hero play down here, I just don't think there's any need to do it. Why, right? So if we do take out this high and we break this series of lower highs, and we get a higher high, well, it's well, certainly there'd be a retrace, right? So let me just clear this up. So let's get everything off. Let's remove everything. So if we were to break that, let's just, for the sake of discussion, say we got this. So we got some sort of come here. We got something like this here down, and we broke the high. Well, I'm not ready to be a big buyer there just yet because, right, we what do we know about Elliott, right? We correct in threes, we trend in fives. Now, if I could, if this went to a 1618 and we broke a second one, so let me just show you what I mean. So if we had something like this and we got up here and we got a wave 3 target like that. Do I have that dialed? Yeah, that's close enough. So you get my point. So if we got something like that, well, now we're getting into a different discussion, right? So now we have potentially a 1, 2, 3, right? First retrace would be the logical place to be a buyer, but in the larger degrees here, there's just no reason to force that, right? So even if you got that and then you followed that with a retrace for the 4 and the 5, right? We know there's going to be an A, B, and C, right? That's highly probable. So you've got the opportunity to catch that, right? So if you don't catch the turn, right, on the assumption that somewhere down here we're going to get a pivot and then we get this potential here, this pattern that we'd be looking for, where we break the series of lower highs, and then we'd get something that would go to a fib target that would suggest potentially that we've got a 3, right? We don't know until you see the 4, 5. Right, but then there's going to be the opportunity to buy that retracement. Again, now I'm purely hypothetical here. I don't know. None of this is set up. But, right, so I wouldn't be fretting, again, hypothetically, if this were to turn and go, right? Big if. But if it were, I wouldn't be fretting that I missed that first move, right? There's the opportunity here. If you missed that and you're like, wait, I'm going to wait until I see a motive wave come off of a low here and I break this pattern. Because, of course, here we'd have a series of higher highs and higher lows. Right, that would break this pattern that we're in. But if we get that, right, even here on the daily, where would that take? Well, it's 9,700. But assume we're going to get at least 50% of that's going to come back. Right, that's a reasonable assumption if you're trading as an Elliott trader, or even if you're just trading as an algo trader, right, just using the retracements. Well, the 50% we'll sit and wait for that. Now, can you wait that long? Right, does that frustrate you as a trader that you'd be having to watch all of this go by? Well, here I'm on a daily chart. You don't have to trade off the daily, but if you want to take the more conservative approach, right? So I get a lot of people write me and say, God, I've just been wrecked in crypto. What should I do? I get that question a lot. So it's easy for me to answer it. So I just say, well, why are you banging your head against the wall in crypto? There's so many other things to trade. There's plenty of opportunity. Most of my success this year has all been in FX. Right? Crypto has just not been. Right, if you're looking for the bullish side, right, obviously we know what's been happening. So my answer to that is always look to other assets, but there's crypto purists that just don't want to go there yet. So what's the, if you're going to stay with crypto, well, you know, you're kind of in a tough spot here, as I've mentioned previously many times. I think we're so far down in the alts. I think way too late to be a seller, too early to be a buyer. Right? We have no signs of bottoms anywhere in the alts. And with Bitcoin, while there's plenty of opportunity on both sides in Bitcoin, you know, if you prefer to wait for the buy side to get rolling, well, you got to wait. You got a long wait, right? Until this unfolds here. And again, I'm on the daily, but you got yourself a long wait. So patience, right, is the first thing, right? So many traders, right, this constant need to be in the market. It's tied to that idea that, okay, but here's what I'm doing. I'm a trader now, so that means thus I have to be in the market. Well, I promise you that's the wrong approach. You don't need to be in the market. You want to be in the market when you see something that meets the requirements that you look for. How do you qualify a trade? Right? So, you know, sometimes just either letting this happen, waiting, right? So maybe it takes to the end of the year. Maybe it takes longer, right? So why are you forcing it? Why? There's just no need to do it. So you can say, well, you come down to the 3 hour, 4 hour and wait for something like this to happen. Well, we're going to go look at that in a second. But I would just tell you that if you're a crypto purist, patience is your friend here right now. Not trying to pick the low, not trying to nail the turn, and then, you know, post your chart on Twitter and how badass you are. Nobody gives a shit about that, really. As a trader, what's important to us, right? So we need that. We need the criterion to be there for a trade to set up. And we just don't have anything here to hang our hats on the bullish side. There's just no sign of it yet. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're not shorting this, consistently shorting these retracements, and we have a lot of people doing that, a lot of people following my partner into some extremely successful shorts. Right? I mean, that's not. This is me personally. That's not what I do, right? So if I'm going to be shorting something, I just go to other markets, right? So I'm not a crypto purist. I don't care, right? Chart's a chart to me. So anyway, not to get caught up in my particular issues, but let's come back to Bitcoin here. This is what I would tell you to wait for, right? So if you're a purist, you're going to have to just sit on the sidelines, right? You don't have to be in the market. All right, well, with that said, right, and just my opinion, right, nothing more than my opinion, right, take it for what it's worth, right, so waiting for this, well, if we come back to our daily, sorry, oh, here, it's probably faster than this, let me remove all drawing, right, so we still have the last swing, right, none of these have gone to target, none. Right, so here, if on the assumption here that we're going to use dominant swing or dominant pivot to dominant pivot, and we come up, we didn't quite get the 618. Interestingly, right, note right into the lips of the Vegas wave, right, just past the 144, right in between. Get just textbook Vegas wave trade. Oh, let me get this a little tighter there. So we didn't quite make the 618. That pattern of consistently hitting the 618, we didn't quite get there. Perhaps that's just a sign of weakness. Where's the target? Right, none of these targets have been hit. So we're down here. This is 52.75, right? So just no signs of that getting hit. Hang on here, getting a call from someone who I do need to talk to. Okay, sorry. So back here now. So let's go down to the shorter time frame. Right. So I think you get my view here that this, even if we think about all those as I first drew them up, all the targets that are down here below that are unrealized. You know, that's going to be a magnetic pull because we have no counter algo, right? We have nothing on the other side of this that I can say, oh, well, here's the competing algo that bought this last 50 and maybe that's going to target. There is no competing algo that's buying longs in here, at least not on these higher time frames. So going all the way down, right? So we'll give you this. Here's the shorter term, the best count I can come up with here. And of course, many of you know if you watch my charts here, I've had to adjust it and change the count multiple times, right? That's welcome to trading, right? You adjust based on what you're seeing. So this is my most recent count here, right? So given this price, let me reset this. So given this price action, you can see I'm pulling up here from this little shelf here of pivots rather than the dominant, right? I'm using the secondary pivot, right, on the assumption here that we went golden zone again, just to stay consistent with that pattern. But it's just as relevant up here, right? If I take that dominant swing, you know, that wouldn't, yeah, it's not perfect. But the other reason I like this, if we pull over here, look what happened at the 50. get that right there. So we had a little reaction sell-off at the 50, golden zone. You know, there's no way for us to know what they used until we see a reaction at a target. The problem is we haven't hit a target yet. So I'm kind of leaning into that as a contender here. That does affect my target here. It's going to be a little bit higher, right? 52.98. So what are we doing? Where are we going? Well, again, there is no competing algo for us to be worried about on the buy side. If you're looking for the short side, well, this is pretty, it's hard to see anything other than we're just waiting for the next retracement, right? So I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of that. So likely that's just an A wave of some, it could, oh, shit, I shouldn't say that. Could very well, that could be a 1 wave, right? But right now, I'm kind of leaning into an ABC to finish this, right? We're still on the longer term degree, and the idea is that we're completing a very long WXYXZ, which would be down here, right? We've been through that a few times as well. So just looking here, right, from golden zone, knowing that there's a target down here somewhere, and we're looking for an ABC to finish us. Well, okay, let me pull this off since we have that established. Well, what are we doing now? Well, we can get 5 out of this, right? Even if we look here at our oscillator here, we had a big, this was the impulsive move down, then we had pretty substantial divergence there. You know, volume's coming in, but it's not really helping us much. If we look point of control here, here's our range that we're sitting in, right? You can see clearly this is where all of our trading has been. We have a little outlier here, but the bulk of the trading, here's market acceptance. So point of control is 64.09. So, right, so what's likely next? Well, allowing for this as an ABC, finishing up here at this C with that technical pivot. I mean, it's pretty hard to do anything other than that, right? And look at where are we likely to hit that resistance, right? So the anticipation would be there's some, maybe that's the B, we don't know. There's some sort of push here, and maybe here, maybe second target. This, I would pay attention right there if we're going there, but I would not ignore the larger degree, right? So try and line them up. Where do we see confluence? That's the other thought. Where else can I find confluence? Well, if I'm going to use this again and go back down to my absolute low, do I have any confluence down here? What's lining up? Well, note here it's the second target. So if we're going to go second target down here, which we don't know, this could be the low, we don't know. All right, that's just as valid here relative to this swing. But if we're going back up here and we don't know that we are doing that, we don't know, this could be rolling over right here. That's would be extremely shallow for the B wave. I think that's less likely. There's more likely is that there is one more push up here to get to a 50 so an algo can sell it. Note here on the side, what happens here at this 50, right? We get a little low volume node yet again, where we get right in here. We've got this little pocket. I guess I want to pull this over. If I get that little low volume node. Note how it lines up here with prior pivots. Right, this was significant to the market, so we could just do 3.8. But if we're going to get a good 50, just a straight algo play, right? Here's the first target, second target. So I've got a pretty good confluence down here at 52, 5300 relative to those larger targets. Well, what else can I use? Well, so again, I'm just wicking off these significant pivots. Right here was one. Here, this was significant to the market. Right, we cut right through it on the way down, but it wouldn't surprise me that some of these kick in yet again on the way back up. So this, right, so you can't even see it because I have this marked off. So this would be significant, right? All of this. So maybe we come in, we run into some of that prior structural support to offer that resistance, which would set us up for that kind of a move. Then we look again, say, well, if we were to do that, if it were to go to the 50, what else would be there? Well, maybe we go to the 618. You know, you're looking to where can I get confluence? Could we go that high? Well, a B could go that high. Right? Anything here? If I'm at the 3.8, well, that's kind of interesting. Right? Maybe we don't get there's the 3.8. So again, I'm just using the alternate price tool. So I'm taking the length of this swing, and I'm doing some just testing. Where do I see confluence? Excuse me. If we're going to come back up here, so maybe this is a shallow. And now we come, here's the 1618, here's the 100 lining up right on that second algo target. Right, yeah, and it's just hard to know. Right, what's next? Right, so again, let me try and squeeze this up, and I'll draw this yet again. See what that is there more confluence there? Anything else I can look for? A big cluster down here. right? This level is getting a lot of confluence here. So then we think, well, what else? Let's see if it came there. Maybe there's something like this to help me line up. There's the center line for the channel. You know, you're just trying to put together a roadmap of what's likely next. Given this 5-wave structure down, the probability is we correct that 5 in 3. Somewhere we find a pivot here, and then we start measuring for projections down below. On the assumption, right, we're taking out this low, right, that we are not finished yet, that there are new lows yet to come. And I'm just trying to line up potential confluence here. So this would be an anomaly. So higher percentage is for a B to go 50, anywhere from the 50 to 786. But I look here and I think, well, maybe. That sure sets up potential confluence zones. But I'm making a big assumption that I'm going to pivot here. And I do not know that I'm going to. But I line that up as a possible. Right? Let's see what happens at that 38. Right, so note here, right, and look at this shelf here, tested 1, 2, 3, then it was support, right? So this level here, this, what is that, 66.26, that was significant to the market. So that, again, that's kind of why I'm leaning into that as potentially an area to be looking for. Again, low volume node, right? Remember, it's one of two things. Either it blows through to find market acceptance or it's rejected quickly. So just a few contenders here. You know, if you don't like the channel, you could do it here, right? We don't know where are we going to get it here, so that puts the median line down here, right? Channel, and we could look at them together and say, oh, maybe, well, we've got the channel lining up. We've got a median line down here. We've got our center median line. All of this potentially here. We don't know where that finishes, but I just start creating the roadmap just in case I get this. Right, if we were to get that. Now, if it's going to go to the 50, some of this doesn't line up as well. All right, so we'll have to wait and see. The next pivot is going to be important to us in terms of where we're projecting for new lows. And then the wild card is that back where I started, is that this level of support down here around, call it $6,000 for just round numbers, that it holds yet again. And all of these targets, so think about what that means. So that means that all of these targets that we drew are all going to go unrealized. All right, so that's an assumption you have to make, that every target from every one of these technical pivots, all of those targets are going to go unrealized. It's possible? Yep, it's definitely possible. Likely? Well, I wouldn't bet against it. Let me put it that way. So one of these is going to hit target, right? Not one of them has made it yet. Let's hope it's the first one. All right, guys, the only other thing that I thought was worth noting here, and I think my partner did some work on this as well. So if we scrunch this up a little bit here and get a little bit more. So I'm going to take this out of auto here. So I kind of get this centered here, go to auto. Then I lock the scale, right? So I want that scale locked. So no matter what I do, I know I've got the scale locked in, right? I will go to GAN tools here, particularly on a daily, to see if I can get any clues here. So if I pull here and I use this as my first, my first interaction with the arcs here. Well, here's my 1x1, right? Bullish above, right? So now we start thinking about some of these longer term targets. Well, here's the big one. All right, so then you think, these were fairly good, right? So this was fairly good, right? So if we held it here. Now, if we're coming down here, from here, we don't know. Well, let's do it. Let me redo that. If we're going to keep going lower, where could we be hitting some of this? All right, so again, you start drawing these up and go, which one of these is going to get hit, if any of them? And then I sort of like this again, this idea here that there's more push down here. We've got these lower targets, right? This was the big cluster here around 3,500. This 1x1 significant to the market, right? So if we were to head down here, we'd get this big cluster down here. Hard to ignore that, right in the arc here, right by our 1x1. Now it's just trying to identify the puzzle pieces. What's influencing the market, right? Technically speaking, right? We can debate about what's influencing the market fundamentally. What's influencing it technically? Well, again, the most rudimentary, basic thing we can identify is this series of lower lows. Or pardon me, of lower highs, right? Without the series of lower lows. Right? That's That's the inconsistency, right? So you think, oh, well, it's as simple as a series of lower highs. Well, not quite, because we're not getting that series of lower lows. We're getting some, right? This was the lower low. We didn't get it here, did not get it here, and so far do not have it here. So back to where we started, just got a big level of support sitting down here. Is that going to hold it? Are we going to get all of these algo targets going to be denied? Something to think about. All right, guys, that's pretty much all I've got to add here today. I don't know if you got anything out of that, just other than don't feel a need to be in the market. Right? Don't try and pick the low. Right? As I've told you many times before, as was taught to me, buyers at lows create new lows. You want to wait for a pivot, take the first retracement. Don't be a hero. Just no need to do it. All right, guys, that'll be a wrap.